The Treasure Coast Lexus Studios, your home for Rudy Howard's African American Scene on WPSL. Treasure Coast Lexus, US 1, south of Midway Road.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, but you're encouraged to like and share them on Facebook. Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie now proudly presents the African American Scene with Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on Wednesday night. And I got a treat for you tonight. I have a guest, very dynamic lady, and I'm so pleased that she has agreed to be with us tonight. She'll be with us by phone. She's in Richmond, Virginia. Before we start, let me get this off my chest. You wonder why we have problems in this country? There are people out there trashing these kids for marching, saying that they were not smart enough to be able to say some of the things that they've said. Well, boy, let me give you some information. You severely underestimate these children of today. And I am disgusted that you would try to diminish what these kids are trying to do. How about try to win the argument for a change instead of trying to trash somebody and say that George Soros is financing all of their activity? How about try to win the argument? Okay, I'm going to get off my...
Demonizing the children. Shame on them.
Man, I saw that, and I just got so upset because, you know what? It's not so long ago, and Jacqueline's going to remember this too, because her and I, Jaqueline, you and I graduated from high school the same year?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did. We were 60s kids. And let me introduce my guest tonight. My guest tonight is Jaqueline Hunter, and she's a retired teacher and a fiction novelist, an African American fiction novelist. That's pretty cool. We don't have too many of those. But Jaqueline, you'll recall back when we were in college, I can remember sitting around at 18 years old in the campus center talking about all the current things that were going on in the world. I can remember when those guys stood on that stand in Mexico City and raised that black glove. That went through me like a lightning bolt.
I remember that too.
You remember that too? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And I remember having lots of discussions, and I was 16 at that time. And then many of us sat around and talked about that. But anyway, I'm not gonna. They'll have to fight with me next week because a lot of times they like to have a good chance to fight with me on open mic. But tonight we're talking to you. Now, first things first. You split your time between Richmond and Swanee, Georgia, where your daughter lives.
Yes, I do.
And your son-in-law is Jerry Stackhouse. Is that the Jerry Stackhouse?
Yes, one and only Jerry Stackhouse, yes.
Oh, my goodness. I saw that. I said, no, her daughter can't be married to Jerry Stackhouse.
You must be a basketball fan.
I am.
Uh-huh.
And my brother-in-law graduated from UNC Law School, and my niece, who might be listening tonight, graduated UNC undergrad and grad. So I got some roots back there at UNC. And the one thing I remember about Jerry was he was a very natty dresser. I bet she's still... Yeah, I would imagine. I was going to say that. He was meticulous about the way he dressed.
Yes, you should see him on Facebook and some of the outfits he's in. He really looks great.
Yeah. He's always been a very, very sharp guy. Boy, so your daughter did all right for herself, getting married to Jerry Stackhouse.
Well, I think they both did pretty well.
Yes, okay. I'm sorry, Mom. Sorry about that. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about you. You went to Virginia Commonwealth, where you got your master's.
Yes.
And
I did my undergraduate work there also.
Oh, you did your undergrad and grad there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes, I
okay.
did.
Now, is that right in Richmond, VCU?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And they usually do pretty well in basketball right now too.
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, you got that guy that was an ex-NBA player that's done a really good job down there. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head.
I can't either.
Yeah, but he's done a really, really good job. Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to talk about your book, but one of the things that I'm most interested in is that you're promoting young people to get interested in STEM careers.
Yes, I am.
You are speaking to my heart. And I'm going to tell you, I think what you're doing is wonderful. Because
Thank you.
I did a show a few years back. I had a few doctors on. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we talked about, I asked them, why didn't we have more African-American doctors? And one of the things they told me, they said, there's plenty of capable people out there. They ruled it out.
Yeah, that's true. And I think part of the problem is that so many young people don't realize that there's a lot of scholarship money available for them if they want to major in something like a STEM career, which would be science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And MIT is leading the way with scholarship money. The Department of Defense is also giving scholarships. They're looking for people who are interested in astronomy, chemistry, computer science, geology, and they can get money to help them get their bachelor's degree, master's degree, and doctorate. So it's just a matter of getting it out there. People need to know that.
Yes, that's really awesome. Yeah, they do. And like I said, don't rule it out. Just don't rule it out. Don't think that you can't do it. Mm-hmm. I know I went through a period of that myself, thinking that things were, when I was much younger, thinking that things were so hard that I were beyond my capability. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, it was like, why did I ever think that? I think I'm pretty daggone smart. But,
yeah.
But, back at that time, I mean, listen, I was even told that I wasn't college material. There's a lot of us at that point in time were told that, but that's a whole nother story.
That's really a shame, because I have a girlfriend who was told the same thing when she was in school, that she wasn't college material, and she has a doctorate degree now.
Yes.
She's a principal in Washington, D.C. And one thing that I tell young people, this is something that Henry Ford has said, is if you think you can or if you think you can't, you are still right. So it's a matter of having the right attitude, believing in yourself. And if you can dream it, then you can achieve it. I remember my teachers telling me that when I was young.
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing too, Jaqueline, that I've come to learn over the years, there's probably, to do some of these things, people think that you have to be Einstein. No, you do not. You have to be willing. I mean, some things are going to come easier to some people than other people, but if you're willing to put the work in, you can do it.
That's true. And and I've been told that the first 2 years of college are probably the most difficult. And if a student can get through those first 2 years, it's pretty smooth sailing from then on.
Yes. I have one of my neighbors, his daughter had a dream of being a doctor. And I happen to think she has the potential to be a doctor. But that first semester beat her into the ground. And so she came back home and said she had to change. Now, I know, because, I know just from sheer exposure and from talking to so many people, especially doing this show, if she hung in there, she was a dual enrollee in the International Baccalaureate program in high school, so she's plenty smart. She just had to get through that cycle.
Yes, that's true.
And I wonder how many kids give up before they can get through the cycle.
I think that unfortunately that happens, and it could be because they're not getting the encouragement that they need to get from their families.
Yeah.
My granddaughter is at Syracuse University, and I'm constantly encouraging her to do her best and to have confidence in herself, giving her little hints as to how to do well, especially this is her first year in college. And she is doing quite well. Thank God for that.
Yeah, well, that's important because you know what? Jacqueline, I can remember like it was yesterday when my mom and dad and my sister drove me up to school. I went to school in Massachusetts. And they finally dropped me off. And they got in the car and they turned around and drove away. And I went upstairs and I sat on the bed and I said, "Oh my God."
It can be frightening.
Oh, Jacqueline, I said to myself, what did I just get myself into?
As a teenager, they're in a hurry to get out of the house, and then when they finally do, it can be very scary.
Oh,
because you're right. They're on their own.
Yeah. I could, like I could remember that. I could remember looking out the window, seeing them drive away, and I just sat down on that dorm bed and I went, "Oh my God, what did I get myself into here?"
But you stuck with it, right?
I did. And I had some bumps in the road the first couple of years. It was kind of, but once I hit my junior year, I knew I was going to make it then.
Yeah, I feel the same way. My first year was very interesting because that was the year when they had just integrated VCU. That first year was called RPI, and that was pretty tough. But I decided that this is the place that I needed to be, and I just stayed with it. And I'm very happy that I did.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm glad that I stayed. Well, my school was small enough that it was much more personal than I'm not sure that I could have made it if I'd have went to one of those big places where there's 300 people in the lecture hall. I know I could today, but back then I don't know if I could have made that. But because it was a smaller school and we had more of an intimate, my classes were 15, 20 people.
Oh, wow. You were really lucky.
Yeah. Most of my classes, except for my Nat Sci class, which was a requirement for all freshmen, there's about 85 kids in there. But most of my classes were 15, 20, 25. That was pretty much the size of my class. But so what do you tell kids because kids sometime will convince their parents they can't do things that they really can do.
Mm.
Do you think that happens too?
Yes, I do. And I think it's so important for the parent to remember who they are. They're not their child's buddy. They are the parent, and they need to help their child make the right decision. When you were talking about going to a smaller college, I think that's part of the parent understanding who their child is and where they think their child can be successful too.
Yeah.
My grandson goes to a small school because it fits his personality, whereas my granddaughter went to a school where there were lots of students, a much larger place to learn. So I think that's important too. I think it's important for parents to take their children to colleges before they're seniors, maybe in the 10th and 11th grade, to visit the college and see if this is a good fit.
We did that. We did that with our son. We went to University of South Florida, the University of Central Florida. We went all around in Florida at the schools because we had the prepaid college program.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we did that. You're right, but here's the other thing, and this is an argument that I have had with one of my family members forever. The kid's 18. They need some guidance.
That's true.
They do not. They are getting ready to make a decision that is going to be possibly what they're going to do for the rest of their life. And they need some guidance. And if you can't give them some guidance, I'm sure you got family or friends that can give them some guidance.
That is so true. And sometimes the counselors,
Yeah.
can, if they know the students well enough, can give them some guidance.
Yep. Like with.
I think.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think as a parent, you really can't wait until your child is a teenager before you start telling them that they're going to college. They should know, even in elementary school, they should know that your path is higher education. My daughter, it's interesting. People ask her, well, did you think about not going to college? And she said, I didn't know I had a choice.
That's that's the way it was for me too.
So you have to really, as a parent, you have to be active in your child's life, and you have to guide them. And as I said earlier, you cannot be your child's friend. You have to be the parent, and you have to be the one who's looking ahead and planning for their future and guiding them in the right direction. Knowing who they are, learning what they enjoy, and encouraging them, not just during fall and winter school, but to take classes, enrichment programs in the summer. I think that's important too.
Yeah, and identifying your child's talents. So if you
Exactly.
if you see that your child is good in math, okay, there's a big hint there. You probably got a child that could work on some kind of a STEM program.
Exactly.
And if you see that, so and I think if you see that potential, I think you have to give them a little push and a nudge in that direction.
That's true.
Because they don't know. They're only 18, 17 years old. What do they know?
Exactly. They don't.
Yeah,
they sometimes they think they do.
Yeah.
But if you are teaching them from the very beginning when they're young, before they at least while they're impressionable, then I think they'll listen to you.
Yeah.
You just cannot wait until they're in their teens and then begin to try to mold them. It starts from their babies.
Yes.
When they're young.
Yes, I agree. And you know what? I almost didn't go to college because I was so angry that I didn't feel like I had a choice. I almost was wanting to rebel. Like, I should have a choice about this.
So were you ready to go to work?
No, I just, you're 18 and you think you know stuff, and it's like I was like, well, I would like to be able to make a decision, but you know what? They were right and I was wrong. And that's the
Now that you
value.
look back at it.
Oh yeah, they were absolutely right.
Yeah.
I was the dodo. I could figure years later you go, wow. My parents
You
were
were the
pretty smart.
youngster.
Yeah, they pushed me.
Yeah.
They pushed me right down the right path. So
That's great. That's great that you have parents like that.
yeah.
And sometimes there are children, there are 18-year-olds who understand the importance of a college education. And if they're not being steered in the direction that they think they should be, then they need to work with their counselors. A lot of times just working with the counselor will be helpful. I remember when I was in high school, I didn't know how I was going to go to college. I just knew that I was going. And I did some volunteer work for my counselor. I would help her with her files. And she was sitting there looking at me one day, and she said, "Do you have any money to go to college?" And I just thought, well, a scholarship is coming somehow. And she asked me to do an essay and to send this essay to, it was called the H.R. Willett Scholarship. And it was named after the superintendent of the school system that I attended.
Okay.
And I wrote the essay, and I won the scholarship. So sometimes just being in the right place with the right person, that's going to be helpful.
Yeah, it really is. Now see, I will tell you, my neighbor's daughter who has got just enormous potential. I think what I would have done, if that was my daughter, when she came home, I would have sat down with her and said, okay, all right, now I know that was hard, but let's think about all the other things that you can do based on this tremendous amount of history you have with all the accomplishments that you did in high school. Let's take a look and see what else is available. Maybe you don't want to be a doctor, but maybe you want to be an optometrist. Maybe you want to be a dentist. Maybe you want to be a pharmacist. There's a whole lot of other things that you can do. Like one of my friends, he just sent around an announcement yesterday. He was so proud. His daughter went to the University of South Florida to be a doctor. And it was too hard. But she just got her PhD in pharmacy. And he was so proud, and he sent that out to Facebook to all his friends. His daughter just got her PhD in pharmacy. So
That's great.
Yeah, so she couldn't do the one thing, but got some guidance from her father and her mother. And she moved into the pharmacy area, and now she's got a PhD in pharmacy, and I think that's awesome.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And sometimes the counselors have tests, and if they're not able to do a test with the counselor, there are probably tests available on the internet that one can purchase that will help lead the student to the career that their personality fits.
So what would be the name of that kind of test, Jaqueline?
Well, I don't have any. I'm not sure of the different names, but I'm just saying that there are tests available. I know that there are tests available.
Well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I was just wondering if you knew. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's a very, very good idea, especially if you have parents that have never been to college. Then you can at least. By going through the test process, if the parent is wise enough at least to say, well, maybe you should try this test and see what your it tells you have a propensity for. So
Right, right. And one can always Google. Just type in career search test or something like that.
yeah,
And Google.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about. You got a lot of things going on beside writing a book, but let's talk a little bit about. In this day and age, it is so rare that African Americans get into a fiction writing. I guess,
Especially science fiction.
yes, especially science fiction. Now, I guess Get Out, they won an award for screenplay, didn't they? Did they not?
Who did?
The movie Get Out, which was a fiction. Did you see it?
I saw that movie. I didn't really think of it as science fiction, but
Well, it was
to
fiction.
me it was
though.
more like horror.
Well, yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, but
go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say that I saw that movie, but I thought of it as horror. I didn't really think of it as science fiction.
Okay.
And I'm not sure about the awards that they have won.
Yeah. Well, I one of the things that I liked about that movie, and I like about people that can do things like that. What an imagination, gee whiz. I often wonder, how the heck do people even think of this stuff?
Well, I think some people are just born extra creative, and I'm one of those lucky people. So I remember when I was a child, I used to sit down and just write poems all the time. I just enjoyed it so much. And I also draw and use acrylics and oil. So I'm just blessed with that. But one of the ways that I would think of things to write in my book was to sit down and meditate for a few minutes just to get calm, because you really can't have a lot of different things on your mind when you're trying to focus on creating something. Another thing that I would do, I might go to NASA.com or some other, something about space, something about Mars, because my story is about about a girl who lived in the first colony on Mars. So I would do research about an astronaut, about the planets, about the solar system, anything. And as I'm sitting there focusing and pretending that I'm in that particular spot on Mars, then I began to get some ideas, and they just kind of flow, and I just began to write, and that's how I do it.
Okay, so in essence, you escape. You go. Do you actually feel yourself go to that place that
yes, my character. Yes, the character that I create is right there in that space, in that place, and doing things, and I can visualize exactly what the character is saying, and where and visualize the setting, all of that. It's just I guess part of my personality.
Well, not everything I read gets me there, and I enjoy reading a good book, and I'm very eclectic when it comes to reading. I might read a philosophy book, I might read a business book, then I might
read science fiction.
You know what? I really don't. I read some novels. I'm not a science fiction reader, but I'm going to read your book.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got to put that on my list of books to read. I got about 4 of them now that I'm working on. No, I haven't, and I you know what? I don't know why, because I like to go to the movies and see science fiction. So I don't know why I haven't read a science fiction. That's a good point, and I have no reason for why I haven't done that. Yeah, but so you put that little bug in my mind. I know the
Great. That's
first
wonderful.
book that I ever read where I really felt myself go right into the pages was The Pearl by John Steinbeck.
Mm.
Did you ever read that?
Oh gosh, it's been so long ago I can't even remember the book. I do remember, yes, I do remember having to read the book, yes.
Yeah,
But it's been so long ago that I
yeah,
can't even tell you anything about it.
yeah. That was the first one that really grabbed me.
Really?
Yeah, that
Mhm.
book because
Mhm.
I was young then, and
Mm.
I remember turning it. That was one of those where you get into the pages and you can't get to the next page fast enough. You know,
People tell me that that's the way my book is.
yeah, okay,
Once you read one chapter, it's like, okay, I need to go and read the next one.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right, well, I'm gonna. All right, well, then you know what? I'll have to have you
Mhm.
back again after I read the book.
Okay, that sounds great. I want to share something with you. I don't know if
Yeah,
you're familiar with Kirkus Review.
what's it called?
Kirkus Review, Kirkus
Uh,
Review.
oh no.
Okay, it's a magazine that reviews books, and they're very well respected. They have been out since 1933. And I sent copies of my book to them to be reviewed, and they're very tough, and a lot of people cannot get through them. But one of the things that they said about my book is a well-paced, diverting Mars survival adventure, and I thought that was really nice. And also an entertaining science fiction adventure. And they also compared me to Ray Bradbury, who
Oh,
wrote,
okay.
who wrote the Martian Chronicles. And I had not read anything about Ray Bradbury, but since they mentioned his name, and when they did my review, I thought I needed to get out some of his books and read. So I got the Martian Chronicle. I just started reading that, and I'm thinking as I'm reading it, I'm on page 14 now, so I just recently purchased it.
Mm-hmm.
But the style is very similar to the way I write.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, typically, how long does it take you to write a book like that from beginning to end?
Okay, well, my book has 24 chapters in it, 290 pages. It took me 8 months to do the manuscript. I'm going to write a second book, a sequel to this first novel, Lost in the Red Hills of Mars,
Yeah.
and so it's not going to take me quite as long to do the first manuscript. But then after the manuscript is completed, then I have to go through the editing and the proofreading, the rewrites. I know I rewrote the book at least 10 times. And so I started in 2014, and I copyrighted it in 2016, and published it in 2017. And even in the year of 2017, I did some more proofreading and editing, just a little bit more in 2017. So it took a period of 4 years
Yeah.
to get that first novel completed. But I have friends who have been working on their novels for 10 years and they're still not done. So I don't feel so badly.
You know, I forget who was telling me. I think it was my niece was telling me the other day
Hmm.
that, we should try to put some things together to preserve some of our family history.
Hmm.
And that was an interesting thought,
Hmm.
you know. But you got friends that have been working on the book for 10 years.
10 years and still not done.
That was one of the other things that I learned
Hmm.
when I was young. I used to think if I couldn't sit down and just write a paper just like that, there was something wrong with me. I just didn't.
Hmm.
I didn't realize you had to write, rewrite, edit, check,
That's right.
redo.
Hmm.
Why I didn't know that is beyond me. But I just really thought that there was something wrong with me if I can't just sit down and write this paper out.
It's the exposure. I've been just taking classes in writing. When I first decided that I wanted to write my novel, I had never written a novel before, never even attempted. I used to write short stories and poems as a child. So what I did was, first of all, I did my Google research, and I found out some books that I needed to read, and on characterization, plot, how to put in the dialogue, and a few other things. But it still wasn't enough for me, just sitting there reading on my own. So I decided to take some classes, and some of the classes they would tell us, well, just write, just continue to write, and as you write, you get better and better, and that's true. But it still did not lead me to where I wanted to go. I wanted to write something that I thought would be a real challenge, and I found a club called Agile Writers. The founder is Greg Scott. Greg Smith. The club is only in Richmond, but it was the thing that I needed. Greg has a master's in computer science, and I think because he is more like a geek, I am more like a geek also. I think I can relate to the style that he was teaching, and he required us to develop some structure. We started out by writing about the character, finding some faults in the character, also things that would be considered positive in the character. We had to develop that first. And then we did a synopsis of the entire story before we even began to write. And then once we had the structure in our head as to how we're going to, where the story is going to go, had a general idea how it's going to end, we began to write. And we had to write 10 pages every week. And so having that kind of commitment, we would meet once a week. We would critique with each other. We would be in groups of 3, and we would critique each other. And just having that kind of commitment, I think, is what I needed, and it helped me to be successful and to complete my novel. So I think what people need to do is, as I said before, read, take classes, and then find clubs that will be helpful to them, where they can find themselves, where they can grow. That particular method might not be the best for everybody, but it was the best for me. I do know some people say they like to be in clubs where they can just write and just be free. But I'm more of a structured person, and I'm more of the kind of person who says, I've got to get it done, and I want it done at a certain time. And having that kind of structure was really good for me.
Yeah. And listen, I'm sorry, folks. If you want to call in and talk to my guest, that number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. I got so engrossed in our conversation, I forgot to give out the number to let the people call. So.
Oh, and the name of my book, I don't know if we said that, Lost in the Red Hills of Mars, and it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Nobles too, and Kindle. So it's out there.
I have become a huge Kindle fan.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. And you know why? I mean, some people still want the book itself, but if I put it on Kindle, Jacqueline, I can adjust the size of the type. I don't even need my glasses.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So if I put a book on Kindle. I got my Bible on Kindle. I got all my books on Kindle, and they're sitting up there on the shelf. And so I find that a very easy way for me to read, because I just adjust the size of the type, and then I can just peruse right through there.
A lot of students, I noticed, a lot of young people prefer reading from their phone. Anything that's nonfiction, I might put on my phone. But a novel, I want to lay back in my bed with my book in my hand, my old-fashioned paper book in my hand. So,
well, the Kindle, I put it on my tablet. The phone would be too small for me, but I do put it on my tablet. So All my books are on there, not on my phone. So, so that's a quite well. It's basically the same size as a book. It's just a single screen. That's all.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So,
I
so where did you come up with the idea for your book, Lost in the Red Hills of Mars?
Hills of Mars, and the idea of a child in the colony. Well, as I said earlier, I did teach middle school science.
Yes.
And I took my students on a field trip at the Math Science Center, and they were given a lot of materials, and they were told, your job is to develop a colony, a Martian colony. And they were so excited, and I was so excited, and I thought, one day I'm going to write about something like that. So it stayed in the back of my mind until I retired, and then I thought, that's what I want to write about, because that really excites me, the idea that someone is living in the first human colony on Mars.
You know, that might not be fiction in a few more years.
I know. Elon Musk is asking people. I remember, I think it was about 2 years ago, when he put out ads for people who were interested in going to Mars. It would be a one-way trip. They have to live out the rest of their lives on Mars. And he had a lot of response, too.
I met a couple people a few years back in the airport who had signed up for that. And
really?
Yes. Yeah, and I asked him, I said, how do you feel nervous or reluctant? Nope, I want to do it. I want to go up there, and I'm prepared to go up there and stay. And I said, okay. I thought to myself, better you than me, because I'm not interested in doing that for sure.
I would love to see it, but I want to come back to the Earth.
Yeah.
I would love to see it, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it either, but yeah, you're right. I want to come back here. You know,
right.
So I don't know. So how did you teaching? You were even assistant principal, huh?
Yes, I did. I was an elementary assistant principal. I did that for 4 years, and but I really enjoyed teaching science, and so I taught science more than anything, quite a number of years.
You said teach general science or?
General science. It was middle school. It was considered middle school science, which was the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And so that would be general science, life science, or physical science.
Okay.
And middle school level.
Okay. Did the kids seem interested? Was it hard to get them interested?
No, well, it's interesting that boys, for some reason, seem to enjoy science more than girls. I don't know why, but we did a lot of experiments. I always make sure we did plenty of experiments, plenty of hands-on activities, and I know the boys loved it. Sometimes the girls were a little nervous, especially if back in those days, we did dissections in life science and dissecting those huge frogs and those long earthworms and stuff like that, and the girls didn't really care much for that. But
I did that in high school too. I dissected a frog. Yeah.
So that kind of thing. But in general science, in 6th grade science, we would do something in earth science, and we might go outside and create a sundial or dig up some dirt or pond water, stuff like that. That didn't seem to bother them as much as the dissections. But right when I was retiring, people were beginning to use digital dissections. Parents were requesting it, that the child did not dissect a dead animal, but would just do it on the computer. So I'm sure that more of that is happening right now.
What do you think about that?
I like that idea.
You do?
Because I like the idea that they're doing it on the computer. Because I used to feel really badly when I would go. We had storage room where we kept buckets of frogs in formaldehyde, and I just thought, oh my gosh, how did they kill these poor critters? But it was part of the curriculum, so it's what we did.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, I guess what I'm starting to think to myself, technology seems to be invading every aspect of our life.
Mm. I think of it as enhancing every aspect of our life. I never thought of it as invading.
That's because you're a scientist. I look at it no, come on. I some of it is enhancements, but I do think of it.
Hmm.
I do look at it some as invading. Technology just like it seems like it just takes over in places where I really think that the human touch is still something that should be honored, or.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, and wow, just think about, Jacqueline, from where we were in '69 to where we are today.
Gosh, it's amazing.
8-track.
When
I was telling a young person when I had my first job in insurance. I said I
Mhm.
walked into the office and the tops of all the desks were blue, and they said, "Blue? Why were the tops of all the desks blue over in the clerical area?" I said, "Because they use carbon paper." What's that?
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten all about that. Yes, I remember.
There was no copy machines, right?
That's right.
There was no copy machines. There was no fax machines. Nothing. So yeah. So the tops, all the desks are blue. I can remember that like it was yesterday. And the girls
Oh
in
my
there, a
God.
lot of them had blue fingers.
Oh gosh, I remember that.
You
I
remember that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank God we have new printers now.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I go out to the libraries and do book signings, and I'm talking with young students, I bring with me my first cell phone. I don't know if you remember; they were about the size of a notebook.
Oh yeah. Yes, I do.
and they are amazed to see those.
Yeah.
Really funny.
I remember the bag phone even.
Mhm.
Remember there was
It was
a big old bag.
Oh yes, that's what I take to and show them, and
Yeah.
it had a huge battery and an antenna coming out of the side,
Yep.
and
And then Jacqueline, and listen, in our lifetime, we went from 8 tracks, and somebody, I was telling this, a young person, they said 8-track. What's an 8-track?
I know. Don't you love it when you're talking with them and they look at you like, what?
Yeah, what is that? What's an 8-track? Yeah.
Hmm.
Then we went from 8 tracks to cassette players. Then we went to DVDs. Now we're on the transition out of that to strictly thumb drives and internet connections.
Right. Yeah, especially internet connections. Yeah.
Yeah, all that happened in our lifetime. Just
I know. It's
bang,
amazing.
bang, 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 bang.
I love it.
Yeah. I don't know.
And I just.
Some people in my business, when in the being insurance business, there were some of the old timers. When they said, "We're not sending you any more paper, you have to get on a internet direct line, or we're not going to do business with you anymore." Quite a few of them quit. They sold their agency, they got out. They just like, "I'm not doing this."
They couldn't adapt to change very well.
Well, you know what? For the most part, I think human beings have a tough time dealing with change.
And that's what I hear.
You
And the reason why I say that's what I hear, because I'm very adaptable and enjoy new challenges. So.
Yeah.
I do. I enjoy using the computer and all the technology. And if I don't know how to do it, I can always take a class and learn how to do it.
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of things with the computers, having my own business, I got tired of paying people to come and fix things. So I just started going in there and trying to figure out how to fix some things myself. And you know what? I fixed a bunch of things, so I didn't have to keep
you
calling.
sound like a scientist.
Oh boy, I'll tell you.
That's the way you do it.
Man, we are coming to the end. This has gone by so fast. I cannot believe it. We're coming near the end of the hour. So now tell us where we can get your book. The name of your book again is?
Okay, it's Lost in the Red Hills of Mars. And go to Amazon.com or either Kindle. Also, very soon I'm going to have a workbook to go with that novel. It'll have comprehension questions in it, vocabulary assignment, and also assignments that kind of steer students towards STEM careers. So that'll be coming soon.
Okay. Are you going to ever be coming down this way?
Yes, I do plan to.
Okay.
I know that I'll be in Atlanta probably at the end of April, but I haven't set a date for coming down to Florida yet.
Okay, well, just let me know. Yeah, when you come, just let me know. I was in Atlanta this past weekend. My fraternity had our district conference there. So I was out in Buckhead at the Renaissance and the Sheridan.
Oh yeah. I know about the Buckhead area.
Yeah. Well, look, we're
Really
coming.
nice.
We're coming down on 1 minute. Jaqueline, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
And
it's been my pleasure.
Yeah, and after I read your book, sometime, like I said, I got about 4 books I'm backed up on. But after I read your book, I will contact you again, and we'll get you back. I'll get you back on there so we can talk about it.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jaqueline. Folks, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the African American Scene. God bless and be safe, and I will see you next Wednesday right here for the African American Scene.
The African American Scene with Rudy Howard is presented every Wednesday evening in the 6 o'clock hour by Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie. Don't miss the archives of this show on WPSLTV.com.